Okay, everyone, thank you for joining us for another Poetry Corner from the deep, dark depths of lockdown. Joining me today is Kirsty, who's my support bubble, and one of the few reasons I'm still sane-ish. And we're going to start off with Samantha, followed by Tatiana, if you'd like to take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I didn't realise. Oh, am I on mute? Oh, no, I'm not mute. Sorry. So the first one I've got is The Survivors. This is The Survivors, and this is a testimony to the Nazi concentration camps. The survivors, they saw bodies piled up high, right up to the sky. The stench was strong. What happened was very wrong. The survivors shared and cared. They didn't succumb to eating human flesh. Disease overcame them. They prayed to survive. It happened slowly. The Nazis segregated them, forced them into ghettos, took away their sense of who they were, stole their businesses, eroded their rights. No one stood up for them. They believed the Nazi lies. The survivors, some are the only family members left, the rest left to rot or dead, told to have a shower, then gassed instead. It wasn't an easy ride. Some did survive. They resisted from the crematoria to which they were hung, for all to see what evil murderers we see. We pray it won't be repeated. Such evil did forlorn, but the evil resurfaces. The segregation continues. If survivors were alive today, they would cry, knowing why so many died. Yet those in power, they conspire to take away those foreigners, people who have escaped war, famine, injustice, just to have it happen once more. The survivors' testimony, it remains. It is the only facts we have to share. Together we must care. We must be the voice for those who are not there. Thank you. The deportation. They came for them in the middle of the night, pitch black outside. No one to see the reality. They took them far away, made them stay away, splitting families up just like the Nazis used to. Yet so many ignored it. It isn't worth it to complain incessantly, for they came for them in the night before daylight, placed on planes to go away. Their crime, the colour of their skin. This is the country we are in. Many sighed. Good they're gone away, said Farage's fans, as they waved them away, thinking that they had the final say. This is how the Nazis began, but no one sees it here. They are scared to live in fear. They say, it won't happen here. Placed on planes, no one knows where they are. Placed in camps on US shores. My dreams and visions, they come to me at this time in history. The right something feel glad. Whereas the right wing feels glad, whereas the left feels sad. They always go for the foreigners first. I fear for the worst on the day they took the Jamaicans away. Thank you. One time for one more. What time? Yeah. The day we stopped. The day we stopped, my world fell apart, which wasn't so smart. The shops shut up, all the restaurants too. What are we meant to do? The day we stopped, I fell into a flight, felt unsafe, confused at all I saw. Wanted the world to feel once again safe and secure, not so scary anymore. They call it lockdown, being stuck in, but my job is a key worker. I'm told it's safe to work. That is actually a bit of a perk, you say with a smirk, safe at home. We dutifully kept the NHS. This reminds me of the surreal 1984. Winston and Julia kept apart. Oh, don't make me start. The masses, they cheer when they would rather drink beer or have a loved one near. The day we stopped resulted in fear. My world crumbled once again into tiny shreds of glass, cutting deep into my skin. As my mum cries, please let me in. We stopped for a month. They extended it more, so I feel sore. No news, no triggers, just peace. No negativity, no conspiracies, just peace. As I pray, please let this turmoil end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we can all identify with that last one right now. Next is Tatiana, if you're ready to go.
Yep, no problem. Sorry, just 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I wrote that last one at the beginning of lockdown, and yeah, it's still I still got much to use because of all this what's going on. So yeah.
Is there too much background noise?
Can't hear any background noise from you.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I've got two shortish poems today. The first one is called I Was Not a Ghost. And I've got content warnings for toxic friendships, mild gore, and religious imagery. Also, hi, nice to see you again.
Hello.
I was not a ghost. My howl echoed up to the moon, and you closed your window against the noise. The week before, you see, I had run through the rain to heed your own cry, and on the way home that night the wolf found me, took me in a single bound and sunk its teeth. Perhaps you thought merely that my song belonged to another monster of the night, but the pitchfork of your tax drove me back well enough. We all have our own problems to deal with. You can't always demand other people's emotional energy. Caught in a bear trap on my way to solve your problem, I cried and cried to the night. But your dissertation was due, so you turned up your music to drown me out. Alone again, I gnawed off my own leg to be free. You claimed the door was open, not trying to understand that I could not step inside without invitation, that you had made me unwelcome with a cross of sharp words above the door. I was hungry for the one you had with you every night, drawn by the scent of blood, tried to explain that you cannot welcome both the bloodsucker and the priest across your threshold. You made it clear whose company you preferred, then accused me of not making an effort, ignoring the 5 times in a row you cancelled plans I made. After promising to love every flaw, you carried stakes like jewelry, turned them against me, every conversation hidden beneath a falsehood of insincere texts and blessings that burned my skin. Knocked from the pedestal you put me on, I fell into the hellfire below. Feathers became spines until my body was its own weapon, until I could not hold a conversation without trying to bargain for a soul. Stepping onto the ground, sanctified by your holier-than-thou conviction to every argument you started, ignited my cells, made a wildfire of my wings that blistered everyone I cared about. Pacing in the tiny walls of my flat, I chose to burn down my own church rather than risk making you taste the hellfire you cast me into. And after I crawled back to the surface with the stump of burned wings cradled in my arms, you dare to tell me you would have offered me forgiveness if only I had apologized. I was a poltergeist, rattling the walls, knocking books from the shelves, making the record player jump, trying to shake a single apology into being. I was a zombie, rotting in grief, maggots oozing from my gums, stumbling after you down the road, desperate to feel warm skin one more time. I was an abomination, the nuclear fallout of your temper mutating me into something I did not want to be, rampaging to another city just to find peace. I did not go quietly. I did not fade away. I was not a ghost. I went screaming, tearing myself away from yet another person who made a monster of me. Call me what I am. Demon, burning, vampire wanting, wolfman, gnawing off my own leg to be free, my howl still echoing, unheard, into the night. Thank you. And thank you for all the comments in the chat. I can't type while I'm reading, but I appreciate it. Okay, this second one is called the 5th of November, and it used to be like my favorite holiday day of the year celebration thing, and then I had 3 either genuinely traumatic or just kind of shitty ones in a row, and it was just kind of a thoughtful poem about trying to reclaim that and thinking on those. Content warnings for breakups, suicidal ideation, graphic description of pet death, and just general depressive vibes. Remember, being prone on the floor of your bedroom, mind strobing in and out, body paralyzed, non-epileptic seizure, voice on the phone to your housemate, body just shutting down, a brain so certain it cannot survive that it turns off everything it can, only the damned heart still beating despite your best efforts, even the lungs trying not to work, conscious but immovable, staring at the door with eyes that will not blink for 95 minutes, the mark the carpet left on your cheek for 2 days, the bruises from the fall, the words you would write poems about for years. Remember, holding him against you as the needle goes in, the panting, lolling tongue resting on your arm going dry, Panicked brown eyes you had stared into so many times glazing over. The softness of his ears you will never forget. The way you kissed his forehead over and over. Tried to inhale his warmth as if you could hold it in your lungs forever. He's holding on. I'll deliver a second dose now. The scream building inside you that you would hold in until the car, the marks your nails left on the hard rubber of the floor, a permanent record of your grief. Remember, curled up on the sofa, numb and quiet, a global exhaustion stretching into a months-long silence. The smell of damp that would worsen and refuse to leave in an empty flat that slowly crushed you for 6 months, the decay growing over books like you wished it would go over your bones, all meaning of time and celebration gotten. Wondering how you will lie to an 8-year-old tomorrow who looks at you with trust and adoration that you didn't spend the night, curled in silence, trying not to hear the fireworks, after telling her it was your favorite day of the year. Remember, holding the sparkler, the glee of letting out a shriek as it swarmed around your hand, the softness of a glove and the cold of the air, the glow of the bonfire warming you from 50 feet back, the smell of it in your hair for days, wood and smoke and joy, the crunch and sweet of a toffee apple, the crush of the crowd you could ignore by focusing on the sky, bursting with colors you would try to hold in your eyes forever, the dizziness that came from staring up too long, spinning around and pretending to fool, absolutely enchanted by the light and color and warmth and noise. And that's all I have today. Thank you.
Brilliant. Absolutely powerful. Like that first one, harrowing. Brilliant. Really well done. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Kirsty is going to be next to read.
Okay. I've just got the one, and it's called Tonic. Content warnings for mentions of abuse and mental health, possibly self-harm. There's comfort in the hazy muster which once resembled memories. My memories. Memories I'd have sworn would haunt the back of my eyes for decades, grafting a vivid screen inside my pupils on which my most harrowing moments roll perpetually. But instead, I get a shiver, an urge to vomit, and the paranoia in the morning which sews my eyes shut, because in that moment, I drown between my nightmares and a reality which became foreign to me. And I feel from the pounding in my temple to the chills that start in my toes, that when I open my eyes, he will be looming over me, a pillar of apathy and a ratty fleece. And in those hated moments, if I inhale, I can nearly taste the old spice, searing the back of my throat and scarring me hoarse. It tastes of fear and reminds me of a time when my corrupted skin screamed to be immolated. But my salvation, I have forgotten his eyes. Now he cannot watch me. And the smell of his breath only exists 2 years ago on a day too cold to be April, when I really thought you would kill me. And there is comfort in the hazy muster, and in the rustling of paper or the scratch of a pen. There's safety in careless nights, in cheap box wine, fond company and the warmth of the fire. And in the moment when I realized that the room felt strange because everything was okay, there is serendipity in fleeting smiles from strangers, and there is solace in their arms. After the pigs laughed and you walked free, I have found peace. And you have found yet another way to torture yourself. In that, I see the only semblance of justice that ever made sense.
Thank you, Kirsty. Well, as I said when we read over it earlier, it's powerful and something that probably too many of us can relate to. But very nicely done.
Thank you.
I'm going to read mine next because I've had to jiggle around the order list a little bit for people that are running late. I've got two pieces to read. The first is called An Open Letter, and a content warning for TERFs, SWERFs, racists, fascists, rapists, and all the terrible things they do to people like us. This is a poem for the people who cry out about men being raped, but only when doing so drowns out the voice of a suffering woman. A poem for the people who cry out, not all men, only so they may silence the weeping of victims. It is for the people who argue when you shout out all cops are bastards and try to discredit you with tales of this one decent copper they just so happen to know. It's for the people who answer calls of Black Lives Matters by chanting instead that all lives matter, as though it is we, the people who reside on the fringes of our society, the people who have suffered and ever been repressed, that don't understand the value of a life far better than they, as though our siblings in the Black community haven't been the victims of abuses and discrimination from the fascists in power for the entirety of their lives, threatened or murdered for no more a crime than being a person of color in a world controlled by the jackbooted pigs that comprise the thin blue line these bootlickers adore. It is a poem for the TERFs and the SWERFs, the ones who call themselves gender-critical feminists and deny identities and reality with such joyous abandon, claiming that people who don't fall neatly into outdated boxes don't deserve support or care, compassion, or even basic human dignity. This is a poem to say, shut up. We don't want to hear the poison that you're spewing. It is a poem to say, fuck off, because we've had enough of your pathetic prejudices. It is a poem, in short, to say, enough. You are done. The world isn't yours as it was in the past. It's your turn to cower in the darkness, because now this is the world of the marginalized voices, the people of color, the women who are abused, queer people, trans people, sex workers, and feminists who understand that we are nothing if our politics aren't intersectional. It is a poem to say to them, be gone, because now is our time in the sun. Thank you. That's the first one. And second one, very similar theme. It's called Not All Men, and content notes, much the same as the last one, references of childhood sexual abuse and rape a little bit more, unfortunately. Not all men. These words are flung in my face, powered by righteous indignation, by men who bristle and quiver, aggrieved that they might, even for the basest of moments, be associated with predators and pedophiles, even though I never implied anything along those lines. Instead, I had tried, before they drowned out my words with tides of dissent, to put voice to the suffering that fueled my fury against monsters who might seek to prey upon my sisters in this society. I spoke of a friend's older brother who stole away my innocence one evening after school, and the so-called friend who poured countless drinks down my throat until I got so terribly drunk that I fell into blackness whilst he had his fun with my unconscious form. I spoke of the men who spiked my drinks and taken me to their beds, and the man who battered me, holding me prisoner in his hotel room just because he couldn't get it up, even with the help of that little blue pill. And I spoke of the men who've ignored me, and I said, stop. or screamed out, "No." I spoke of the men who tried to grope me across the top of the bar while I was working, the men who followed me on dark and lonely streets, and the men who found it appropriate and societally acceptable to bellow lewd catcalls across busy streets. These are the demons which I tried to name, these and the hundreds more who've assailed my friends. I was trying to explain the fear and the terror which seizes our souls in terrible icy grips when we're confronted with a strange man who makes crude innuendos and won't accept our clear disinterest, or the man who follows us to the street or the smoking area as we struggle to escape, desperate for safety. It was these monsters which I and others have tried to name, but that matters little to men who've imagined a slight upon their honor from this supposed attack on their gender. And thus they howl out this catchphrase of theirs and plug up their ears, desiring to hear nothing of our explanations or our stories or our histories, because to them our safety is secondary to their arrogance and their pride. Our lives a fair price to pay for allowing them to bury their heads in the sand and avoid confronting their own toxic behaviors. Thank you. That's mine done. We haven't got a Xavier yet. Rhoda, are you okay to go? Can we give Rhoda sound?
Was it on mute? There we go.
There we are.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. Right. Yes, it's quite hard actually to keep going, isn't it? To read when there's such power and emotion in the things that everybody's bringing, and the terrible trauma that so many of us have gone through in both relationships and in wider society. Anyway, on we go, and I'm going to read some work by Robert Lowell. Now, he was a poet who had what we now call bipolar and manic depression, and he was in and out of hospital in his life. He's an American poet who's now dead, but had a powerful influence on many other poets. And he had, his life was tremendously affected by these horrendous episodes he had, and he would sort of attack his own friendships a great deal. He'd smash things up. He would get into some terrible states, and there's a very interesting biography of him and how that has affected his life. Anyway, I'm going to read a couple of things from a book of his prose. He did write, he's known mostly as a poet, but he wrote a lot of prose. The first one I'm going to read, I guess a content warning for quite a few things really, but it's part of a short piece about Sylvia Plath, and he was obviously reviewing her book of poems, Ariel, and as I'm sure you all know, she ultimately committed suicide. So he says, Sylvia Plath's Ariel, in these poems, which he's reviewing, written in the last months of her life and often rushed out at the rate of 2 or 3 a day, Sylvia Plath becomes herself, becomes something imaginary, newly, wildly and subtly created, hardly a person at all, or a woman, certainly not another poetess, but one of those super real, hypnotic, great classical heroines. This character is feminine rather than female, although almost everything we customarily think of as feminine is turned on its head. The voice is now coolly amused, witty, now sour, now fanciful, girlish, charming, now sinking to the strident rasp of the vampire, a Dido, Phaedra or Medea, who can laugh at herself as, quote, cow-heavy and floral in my Victorian nightgown. And though lines get repeated and sometimes the plot is lost, language never dies in her mouth. Everything in these poems is personal, confessional, felt, but the manner of feeling is controlled hallucination, the autobiography of a fever. She burns to be on the move, a walk, a ride, a journey, the flight of the queen bee. She is driven forward by the pounding pistons of the heart. And the title, Ariel, summons up Shakespeare's lovely, though slightly chilling and androgynous spirit. But the truth is that this Ariel is the author's horse. Dangerous, more powerful than man, machine-like from hard training, she herself is a little like a racehorse, galloping relentlessly with risked, outstretched neck, death hurdle after death hurdle topped. She cries out for that rapid life of starting pistols, snapping tapes, and new world records broken. And what is most heroic in her, though, is not her force, but the desperate practicality of her control, her hand of metal with its modest womanist touch. Almost pure motion, she can endure God, the great stasis in his vacuous night, that was a quote, hospitals, fever, paralysis, the iron lung, being stripped like a girl in the booth of a circus sideshow, dressed like a mannequin, tied down like Gulliver by the Lilliputians, apartments, babies, prim English landscapes, beehive, yew trees, gardens, the moon, hooks, the black boot, wounds, flowers with mouths like wounds, Belson's lampshades made of human skin, Hitler's homicidal iron tanks clanking over Russia, suicide, father hatred, self-loathing. Nothing is too much for the macabre gaiety of her control, and yet it is too much. Her art's immortality, her art's immortality is life's disintegration. And the surprise, the shimmering, unwrapped birthday present, the transcendent, quote, into the red eye, the cauldron of mourning, and the lover who are always waiting for her, are death, her own abrupt and defiant death. So that is that piece as part of it. And I mean, as I was reading it, I suddenly thought, oh, how terrible of me. Why am I reading a man's view of a woman poet and a woman's poetry? I have to ask myself that. But I think because he had such an understanding of mental health, that was one of the reasons I was interested in what he had to say. And of course, he had a very influential voice on poetry. And she attended some of his lectures, not as a student. I think apparently she dropped in sometimes, and so he did know her a little and had read her early work before it got published, and that was interesting too. And I'd like to read a second piece by him, which is quite a famous piece, quite difficult to get hold of, and was written when he was in the psychiatric hospital, which was in, as I said, many times. And this is piece, this is just a bit of it's quite a long piece of prose, several pages, and this is the beginning of it, and it's called Near the Unbalanced Aquarium. One morning, and this is the year I was actually born, one morning in July 1954, I sat in my bedroom on the 3rd floor of the Payne Whitney Clinic of New York Hospital, trying as usual to get my picture of myself straight. I was recovering from a violent manic seizure, an attack of pathological enthusiasm. What I saw were the blind white bricks of other parts of the hospital rising in my window, and down the corridor, almost a city block away, I heard the elevator jar shut and hum like a kettle as it soared to the top floor with its second and last allotment of 16 of my fellow patients going to occupational therapy. And then I'll skip a bit. And then the mornings were long because after breakfast and bed making and an informal lounging and television news period, we were all expected to walk for some 40 minutes in the courtyard. It was a formal, flowerless place covered with bright grey octagonal paving stones, like some unaccountably secluded and clean French place. 2 by 2, We walked round and round, and without any props or screens or diverting games, we tried to make conversation. It was thought uncooperative and morbid if we walked with another man. But the women were terrible to me. Some were concave and depressed. Some worried endlessly about their doctor's feelings and remarks. Some flattered, some flirted. Some made fierce, well-expressed, sarcastic thrusts. They all talked, distant, thorny, horny, absent-minded, ineptly polite, vacantly rude. I walked with the ladies. They were hurt, and I was hurt. And the men were almost as bad. I had my cronies, but I had soon exhausted their novelty, which mattered little to me. What hurt me was that in a matter of minutes, I used up any strength that I had to be new or fresh or even there. And then there were the student nurses, crisp-fronted, page-boy-bobbed, pale blue denim bloused, reading new Herald Tribunes and eyeing watchfully the strategic angles of the courtyard. They were ready to engage me gently and bring me back if ever I dawdled into single file or sat down by myself on a bench. The unflowering shrubbery was healthily a full green. The leaves were all there, and in spite of the dusty dreariness of midsummer New York all about us, it all seemed cool, spontaneous, and adequate. That's how all the other patients seemed. And a great iron gate, some 20 feet high, protected us from the city and living. The gate was just a little bit prettier and more ornate than use demanded. It was really locked, and a patient would have had to be an athlete or a thief to scale it. And beyond it, we could see the blinding blue sparkle of the East River. And often an orange tugboat was moored a few feet away from us. It had a swollen fleece and rawhide buffer on its prow, as if begging admission to our asylum. The boat kept moving with chafing sounds toward the concrete embankment. It just gives a flavour of Robert Lowell in psychiatric hospital with all the different, it's quite interesting on its approach to gender as well at that time in 1954 in New York, and you know, his troubled life with mental health.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing those, Rhoda. As Samantha said, beautiful language in those pieces.
Yeah.
We've just been joined by Lucy and Marky Mark, who I assume isn't Mark Wahlberg, but a different Marky Mark. We're going to have Lucy read next, and then Mark, are you okay to go after Lucy? Yep, great. Okay, Lucy, if you'd like to take it away.
Okie doke. Hello. Yes, thanks for having me. Sorry I am late. Today is a long day. Yes, so I was saying to Sierra that I have reached some type of creative block recently, so I don't have anything too exciting today, but I have a couple poems that I thought were, I don't know, relevant to our lives, I guess, and a terrible poem that I wrote, which I will read to you as well. Okay, so the first poem that I'm going to read is a poem I really like, by Sylvia Plath. It's called To Ava Descending the Stair. Sorry. Right. Okay. To Ava Descending the Stair. Cocks cry, stillness is a lie, my dear. The wheels revolve, the universe keeps running. Proud you halt upon the spiral stair. The asteroids turn traitor in the air, and planets plot with old elliptic cunning. Clocks cry, stillness is a lie, my dear. Red the unraveled rose sings in your hair. Blood springs eternal if the heart be burning. Proud you halt upon the spiral stair. Cryptic stars wind up the atmosphere. In solar schemes the tilted suns go turning. Clocks cry, stillness is a lie, my dear. Loud the immortal nightingales declare, love flames forever if the flesh be yearning. Proud you halt upon the spiral stair. Circling zodiac compels the year. Intolerant beauty never will be learning. Clocks cry, stillness is a lie, my dear. Proud you halt upon the spiral stair. Okay. So yes, that's the poem that I really like, and I've been, I don't know, recently I've been thinking about the nature of time, which I don't know, I have a feeling a lot of people have generally been thinking about, because time has, I don't know, we're experiencing time differently now that everything is weird with the pandemic. So many people are, I don't know, that I talk to at work are saying that it feels like time is passing really fast, but at the same time really slowly. It's a very strange experience. Really, really hard to express, I guess. Okay. So yes, so this next one is the terrible poem that I have recently written. I feel, just to kind of let you know in advance, I feel like I haven't really been able to express myself properly in it, which is partly what it's about. So yeah, it's called Speak. Shh, somebody is speaking now. It's always the same people whose voices get heard. When I talk, it's a scratched record, a noise many are tired of hearing. Perhaps I should choose my words more carefully, so I don't disturb the universe. Perhaps I should watch my tone, so I don't offend the man on the throne. Perhaps I should just stay quiet. I've been loud and obnoxious. It's not a good look on me. But what if I don't want to look good? What if my harsh words are deliberate and I want to disturb the silence? My voice will be so loud, they won't be able to turn the volume down. I see some excited clapping. Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, you definitely don't get to call that a terrible little piece you've written. That was, I think a lot of us can identify for that one. It was really good.
Oh, thank you.
Language.
Thank you. Yeah, I say, you know, I guess I say it was terrible because it was more that it was hard to, it was hard to write. I don't know, kind of feeling like I had a lot of things to say about saying things, lots of things to say about saying things, but kind of hard to articulate. Yes, I'm glad you like that. Thank you.
Very much so.
Yes, and this next one, because it's been a year since I last read a Maya Angelou poem in front of a crowd. We were at what was it? Live Poets something last year.
Oh gosh, it was, oh my word, that was more than a year ago now.
Oh
Yeah, it was in February at some point, right? I think it was.
It was,
Cinema and Co.
it was the last one before the terribleness happened.
Yes.
In Cinema and Co, you mean?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah. I can't even remember because there were so many different like open mic and like poetry events happening all at once. I feel like we went to, I don't know, so many in a couple months. We went to like enough for half a year. I don't know. Yeah, so those are good times. I miss them. But yeah, I read a Maya Angelou poem then. So I thought I would read another one to kind of commemorate that, and also because it is very relevant to these times, and you know, I take every opportunity to talk about Maya Angelou. So yeah, without further ado, the poem is Caged Bird. It's a different poem from the one last time. Okay, Caged Bird. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage, can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still. And his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on the dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But the caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. Thank you.
Always a very powerful one.
Definitely.
And I think we've got a fan here.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Thank you for sharing those, Lucy.
Thank you.
Once again, love them. And next, Mark, if you're ready to go.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to be completely self-indulgent, and I'm going to do a couple from my new book, Rhythm of the Ink, the first wave, available now on Amazon. So I'm going to just delve into a couple. Oh yes, brilliant! You've got one. Fantastic.
When the video goes up, feel free to put a link to your sales site in the comments.
Yeah, I will. I'll put a link. I've got a link tree thing which will give you a link to. You click on it and it will give you all the links, including to my blog and the sales site and everything. So, right, I'm going to start off with this one called Fear. Fear is why I'm standing here, trying to hold on to my tears as it creeps and weaves like oil-laden seas. It starts at my feet and won't let me walk to the right beat, pulling them down like lead-laden lumps of meat, holding me glued to the spot as I feel my confidence starting to die by garrot. It meanders up my body, stroking the silent melody, beating the rhythm of my heart, tearing every sinew, muscle, every fibre, every nerve apart, banging and bouncing as it grips its viper's nest, creating a band around my chest, trying to send me to the promised land, firing the synapses in my brain, shutting down thoughts that dance along mental lanes, dragging them back bit by bit, firing them around until they're no longer fit, wound up, spun out, memory dried, no words can it spell. Fear fogs my brain, fogged in the smog like the smoke of a speeding train, clacking along rusty rails, shaking its core to the rusty nails. I stutter and splutter, the words stuck in my cranial prison cell, a hollowed out empty shell. My head starts to believe the voices it hears, creeping fears upon the deep-seated beliefs, reinforced over years and years. Thump, the adrenaline dumps, the weight of 10 men or more. I wish I could curl up on the floor and slowly slide off. Off stage, exit, left, stage door. Hoping you haven't noticed that I mutter utter diatribe. The fear is too heavy to move. I have nowhere to hide. I'm scared you will not like me. Wish you had never invited me. My poetry is not worthy and you're laughing at me. My brain absorbs those whispered words, those profound looks as I deliver my hooks. And finally, it's over. The fear starts to subside as I exit this white knuckle ride, trying to console myself of, oh, well, I tried. As I leave the stage on which I died, an emotional broken sage ripped out another page still shackled to this dust-laden cage. Thank you. So that was one from there. I'm going to do something a little bit lighter. And I thought, because we're probably going to, none of us are probably going to really get to the beach that much with all the stuff that's going on. And I'm sure we could all do with going to the beach. So I wrote this one a little while ago. It's called Life's a Beach, and it's about the beach in the middle of my town centre. Buckets and spades and dark sunshades, deck chairs from the promenade. Children in hats play in the sand, digging with anything, including their hands. Mums and dads and aunties and uncles, granddads and nans all sit around the beach watching the children, just out of reach. Sandcastles and ice cream, fizzy drinks and bags of chips that linger on the hips. It's a day at the beach in the hot roasting sun. Nice place to be after a working week. Rest and relaxation and a bit of fun, especially when the shopping's been done. There's no tide, no place to hide, but there are some fairground rides. We travelled not far, not even by a car, and you'll never guess where we are. The beach is not by the sea, no cockles or winkles for our tea. The beach isn't miles away. You don't even need a caravan to come and stay. For this beach is in my market square. I couldn't believe it. It was just there. So after shopping, it's on to the fair. Then the kids build sandcastles and throw sand everywhere. And I sit in my hat, with my hat on my head, in my deck chair, relaxing my body with care. Thank you. And have I got time to do one more?
Yeah, by all means.
Yeah. Okay, let's pick something at random. Okay. Right. Oh, something quite dark now. This is called Shadow of Doom. In the dark and desolate land, I felt someone take my hand. I shuddered and my heart quickened as their grip on me thickened. I'm rooted to the spot, turning cold from hot. Shadows engulfed me, darkened in the night. They left me wondering as I could not fight. Fear was here and I dared not peer at your face. I'm just rooted to this one space. Pull me forward with a start, beats missing in my heart. Walk me to the valley of death. An ill wind blows like your breath. In the valley of skeletons and skulls, the fear and pain will finally annul, veiling me in your cloak, squeezing me tight while I choke. The world is black and the end is near. Why did you bring me here? No light to present, and this is not pleasant. All I can see is the moon's crescent. Then, as the life ebbs out of me, suddenly you make me see. For I will return not as an angel, but as the devil, ready to devour and to dishevel. This is the end of the angel in me. Now I have Satan riding with me, watching death and destruction with glee, the horsemen of the apocalypse, and one of them is me. Riding my mount with great speed, off the earth I must feed, destroying with waves from the sea, fire and brimstone set light to the trees, death and destruction for all to see. What happens when you mess with Satan and me? And that's all I'm going to do from the book. So if you want to hear any more from it, you'll have to buy it. Okay.
That was incredible. I see Popular Luke. Thank you so much for sharing.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you want to read another one or?
No, I'm good for the minute. And I mean, if other people want to read, and then if you want to go back round again, I've got plenty of other ones that I can dip into.
Is there anyone else that would like to read again, or?
Yeah, I got my new one. I can read because I remember I did luckily write it on a bit of paper. Just hold on.
Yeah,
That's
brilliant.
Okay, hang on.
Sorry, I got it now. It's this one is called, my newest one is called Women's Fight. Women's fight, it is a right to not be afraid walking home at night. We do not want a fright. The days of rip are long gone, except we have not changed. We need to feel safe and as one. Where can't the good guys keep us safe? Across Clapham Common, poor Sarah walked. Then a copper murdered her. We need to reignite the suffragettes. Things haven't changed. So much for equality when you can't even report rape. These poor women traumatized by a broken system, a broken state. So please, why won't you keep us safe? It's a woman's right. We don't want to fight without this foresight. Thank you. That's my newest one, which was about the Sarah's thing, obviously, that happened. What's going on at the moment?
Important moment in time to mark, Samantha.
Yeah, I do like that poem.
I could read one, Sierra, is that okay?
Go ahead, Rhoda.
Okay. This is from my book, Imago. This is called That Moment. Moment when you realize that your definition of yourself goes beyond a new name. A name of the most beautiful flower you can think of, a name that resonates with the color you feel you are, a name that proclaims kinship with the country you've come to live in or the country you've left behind, a name that carries the scent of parents you wish you'd had, or the ones who, despite all, you still want to remember. That moment when you realize that you can stop feeling adrift. You don't need to regret the rifts of the past because it doesn't matter anymore being different or being alone, because you can claim your membership in the flow of history, your place in the heritage of people who came before you. All your life, you've been reading their words, watching their faces and listening to their music. And these are your real cousins, great aunts and uncles and ancestors. These are the warriors and martyrs, heroes and heroines, the people who through their struggles laid the groundwork for you to make your contribution. And yes, that moment when you found out that the price of belonging is that you too must step up and say your piece.
Nice one, Rhoda.
Kirsty, do you have another one you wanted to read?
Yeah, but I'm still loading my phone up.
Is there anyone that would like to go while Kirsty and I are trying to find poets?
Okay, I'll go for another one.
Go right ahead.
Right. I've been doing this one a few times, but I think probably only Rhoda here has heard it. It's called Crosshairs, and I wrote it about a situation in Yemen where children are legitimate targets for snipers. The crosshairs are lined up. The sniper scans the road. He's not looking for vehicles or unfriendly foes. No, his sights are set on another weapon of war, one that will leave lasting scars and do psychological harm, one so despicable it's almost unspeakable. Its name is Luciana, and she is age 4. Luciana plays in the streets amongst the rubble from decades of war and trouble. She plays with her brother. Like all children, she has much to discover. They've learned when to run for cover, when to stay in with father and mother. Luciana is just another innocent kid, caught up in a grown-up's war, never knowing any different to being terribly poor in a country ravaged by endless war. The sniper takes a breath and holds it, squeezing the first pressure on the trigger of his gun, eyes focused through the crosshairs of the sight, aligned slightly right. As he breathes out, slowly he pulls the second pressure. The 7.62 round hurtles through the air at the speed of sound. Luciana hits the ground, crimson red oozing from her head. Her brother wastes no time seeing if she's dead. He drags her home to her bed, eyes wide open, full of dread, risking the bullet in his own head. Luciana wasn't collateral damage or an accidental shot. She was a target, a legitimate kill, to cause pain for her parents, destroying their hearts and minds and breaking their will, seen by the enemy as a tactical kill, a commodity expended at will. Thank you.
That was certainly a very powerful piece, and I think we all just hope that that ends up stopping and not being a case anymore. We don't need more people dying like that, not in this world.
Well, particularly being they are deliberately doing it. It's not that the kids are getting caught up in crossfire. They are deliberately targeting those kids, and that is just despicable. And the sad thing is that those guns that are doing that were probably supplied by us.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, that's the case. Our government is vile. Did you want to?
I saved it to my phone, but I'm also still waiting for my phone because
Okay.
just show, like, my phone's just showing nothing right now.
Okay. While Kirsty is trying to get hers to load, I've got another one of mine, which I'll read. It's a little bit less dark than the other ones I've read tonight, which I'm sure Samaritans will be very happy about. It's still fairly depressing. It's called Conversations with My Ex. And I wrote this one at the start of the month while sitting in the doctor's surgery. What wouldn't I do to have a conversation with you? To spend even a handful of minutes with all the lies stripped away, just a few simple minutes where we could speak with the sincerity I once thought that we shared. What would I ask you? I hardly know. The merest possibility brings words tumbling through my mind, 1,000 questions clamoring for attention as clouds of pure emotion circle, ready to lend their weight to my words. I could ask why you've said all the hurtful things you have said, or why you feel the need to spread toxic lies. I could ask if you still remember the happy times we had, or if you still treasure the gifts we exchange. I might even dare to ask just when it was that you stopped loving me. Though in truth, the real question would be if you ever loved me at all. I could ask all of these things and so many more besides, seeking answers to puzzles and riddles that have tormented me since we went our separate ways. But deep down in my heart, I know that if you were bound to only speak the truth, then the self I saw before me would not in fact be you. Have you got yours? Okay, so Kirsty's going to read one now.
This is a bit of a different topic, of course, but this one's called Sea Suds on Swollen Feet. And it's about my grandma who passed away a couple of years ago, who is a really important person to me. Seesaws on swollen feet. If only I could have memorized the landscape of your face, mapped your freckles like clockwork constellations on a soft sky. If only it were so simple as to engrave your eyes into my temple, each speck of green, every fleck of gold. If it were so simple, then I would have keenly cracked open and etched with no quiver in my hand. If I could sculpt every aspect of your being so vividly that it nearly laughed, then perhaps your loss could be less heavy, and I could be more grateful. But every day you sink further than my fingertips can skim, and I dread the loss of your voice, the feeling of your soft palms on my shaking shoulder. All I yearn for is to grow old, thinking of you in your weathered majesty. But memory flakes like old paint, and the photographs are as empty as your home.
You can feel the emotion on that one. Unless anyone would like to read one more before we finish, we'll probably leave it there. Chris, if you'd like to unmute them so they can actually answer that.
I don't actually mute them. I just ask
No?
them to unmute
Okay.
themselves.
If everyone's happy, we'll leave it there. Xavier hasn't managed to join us, but he did say that he was caught up in work, so happens, particularly him stuck as a key worker in all this.
Yeah.
So thank you all for joining us tonight. It's been absolutely wonderful to hear these pieces, very, very powerful pieces from everyone, I think. If everyone has spare money, consider buying Rhoda or Mark's books at some point. We'll try and get the lists, the links for those in the commentary on this. And beyond that, if you're protesting, stay safe, wear your masks, look after yourselves, and do some self-care. Be safe, everyone, and take care.
Bye.
Thanks so much for putting this on as always.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we're out.
And
Hit end,
just
bottom
start
right.
the recording.